Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you can all hear me okay, and you're very welcome to the next in the Belfast Healthy Cities series of online seminars, all based around the Phase 7 set of priorities that the European Healthy Cities Network have agreed. Just to let you know how this afternoon, the next hour and a half will go. My name is Brendan McGrew, and I'm going to chair this afternoon's session. We're very fortunate to be joined by three speakers, whom I will introduce each in detail just before they speak. But to say at the outset, we're lucky to be joined by McGuicken from the Northern Ireland Environmental Link, who will present on the Green Recovery, a 5-point plan for Northern Ireland. From the City of Utrecht, our friends in Utrecht, we have Gitty Korsuize, and I hope I'm doing justice to your surname, Gitty, who will present on Rewilding Utrecht. And then we have McCusker from Belfast Healthy Cities, who will present on creating space for healthy places. My name is Brendan McGrew. I'm from MW Advocate, and we have worked with Belfast Healthy Cities for a number of years now, working on communications and helping as the organisation engages with policymakers, stakeholders, those who are interested in a healthy Belfast and a healthy Northern Ireland. Just to let everyone know that throughout the next hour and a half or so, all of the attendees who are online will remain muted and with their cameras off, but you are very much encouraged to take part in the seminar. You can submit questions for each speaker using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom platform. The chat box is not enabled, but the Q&A box is. So please give us your observations, give us your questions, and depending on the time at the end of each section, we'll be able to put some of those questions to the speakers. We very much encourage you to get online to promote today's event. And if you do make any comments or social media comments, please use the hashtag #HealthyBelfast. And we want you to know as well that all of the slides from today's presentations will be available online on the Belfast Healthy Cities website after the event. So too will be a recording of the entire seminar, and the Belfast Healthy Cities website is all of the W's at belfasthealthycities.com. So what we have found out and chatting amongst ourselves just before we opened proceedings, I think people are very used now to attending such seminars online, and it may be that we all hope that we're heading out of COVID and heading out of the severe restrictions. And it may be that events like this in the future offer some sort of hybrid between attending in real life and facilitating online attendance as well, because we now realize and acknowledge that it's actually in some regards easier for people to simply log on at their desk, at their home, or from wherever they're working at the appointed time, rather than have to drive an hour or half an hour or even longer than that to come to an event. So maybe that we end up with a sort of a hybrid event as we go forward. But certainly for us in Belfast Healthy Cities, having these events online, which we started about a year ago, has worked for us, and those who are in attendance seem to agree with that as well. So today we are looking at the green recovery in Northern Ireland, and we hope to take inspiration from work that Craig and his team have done behind the scenes, and that has also work which has taken place both here in Belfast, through Anne, and through other cities, in this case Utrecht in Holland from Gitty. And it may just be that despite all of the difficulties of 2020 and into 2021, all the difficulties that were thrown at us by COVID-19, it might just be that period of time where the city centres and the town centres were empty or virtually empty, maybe it made us all rethink how we regard safe and interactive places for everyone who lives here in Belfast and Northern Ireland, how we regard access to green space, cleaner air, and the role that the natural environment can help us to achieve that balance that we're all looking for in our work life, and how we travel, how we get to our jobs, do we travel in the city centres. And maybe COVID-19 has given space for nature to return to city streets and highlighted the possibilities or the opportunities that a green recovery might just offer us now as we emerge from the pandemic. So today we want to have an interactive discussion. We want to hear from our expert panelists and we very much invite you to give us your observations and questions as we go along. So Craig, if you could be on standby in a minute, or just in 1 minute, I'm going to ask you to begin your presentation as I explain the background to the presentation and to yourself. So Craig is the Chief Executive of the Northern Ireland Environmental Link, which is a membership body for organisations interested in the environment of Northern Ireland. It's a role that he has been in since 2013, and in that time has developed a range of initiatives and projects all around the sector's response to Brexit, to the climate NI programme, to the climate challenge that we all face. And of course, there's a climate change bill, not one but two, at different stages in our working their way through the Assembly. And prior to his time at NIEL, Craig worked extensively within the heritage sector, so he brings that expertise and background to us as well. So Craig, if you're ready to share your screen, then I will knock myself off and ask you to take over proceedings, and we're all ears. Thank you, Craig.
That's great. Thank you, Brendan. Okay, folks, so maybe Brendan, you could let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we're looking at your screen now, Craig. Thank you.
That's great, thanks. Okay, folks, look, thanks very much. Thank you for the invitation. My name's Craig McGuicken. I'm the Chief Executive with Environment Link. And I'm going to structure my talk just as you see in front of you here. So I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about Environment Link. I'm going to deal then with a wee bit about the environmental performance of Northern Ireland, because that is connected to green recovery. I'm then going to talk about the Green Recovery Working Group that we put together. And then I'm going to finish up by focusing a wee bit on environment and health, as it's one of the main aspects. So who is or what is Environment Link? We're the forum and networking body for organisations interested in the environment of Northern Ireland. We were launched in 1990. We have 60 full members. So full members of Link are charitable organisations. Our members are involved in all kinds of environmental activities. It covers biodiversity, freshwater, agriculture, outdoor recreation, archaeology, built heritage, climate, you name it. Very, very broad. This slide, I must say, is quite out of date, so I should apologise for that. But it gives you a good impression about the NIL membership. And you'll see here organisations like National Trust, RSPB, Belfast Civic Trust, Supporting Communities, and of course, Belfast Healthy Cities. We're also part of the British Isles network. And this is something that's been fantastic over the last couple of years, whenever we were going through the Brexit process. So there's link organisations in Scotland, England, and Wales. And in the south, we have our partners, the Irish Environment Network. And just to sort of give you a clear understanding of what NIL does, our mission is to be a collective voice promoting the importance of environmental issues through influencing and policy and developing partnerships. And our key objectives are to improve environmental policy, to strengthen engagement amongst environmental NGOs, and to enhance the capacity of NGOs to deliver environmental outcomes. So that's us. The second part of the talk then, I want to talk a little bit about the environment in Northern Ireland. My focus is on the COVID recovery, but I think it's important to understand where we were prior to the pandemic. People assume that Northern Ireland is a clean, green place, but the truth is it's a bit more mixed than that. So I've got a few slides here, which just gives you a snapshot of the environment in Northern Ireland. This first one looks at freshwater. I'll keep this brief. You can see that the fourth column, the fourth bar, basically summarizes that out of all of Northern Ireland's freshwater, only 30% would be termed as good condition. So not a great start. Household recycling, we're doing a wee bit better. I'll be interested to hear Gitty from Utrecht to see if she covers any of these things, actually, just to see how we compare. Household recycling started in 2005 at about 20 to 25% recycling. We're now up to around 50%. So we're not doing too bad in that one. We're certainly making some progress. Energy from renewable sources. The baseline of 2001, only 1.5% of our electricity came from renewable resources. That's now up to 49%. So again, an area that we've definitely improved on, but we're not doing as well as other countries like Scotland, obviously. Transport. This would be a problem area. So this graph is showing you the proportion of all journeys where the main mode of travel is walking, cycling, or public transport. And this shows you that the baseline in 2003, 25% of journeys were like that. And today it's still 25% of journeys. So this is definitely an area that we need to improve. And this is the most worrying of the slides, I would say. And this is looking at the protected sites of Northern Ireland. So these are our most important places, our most precious places. These are the places which have the most abundance of biodiversity, the most important habitats. So if you look at the light blue line, that shows you that in the marine protected areas, only around 5 to 6% are in what would you call, what is termed favorable condition. And if you look at the darker blue line, that refers to our terrestrial, our land sites. And that tells you that in 2017, less than 1% of our most special places were in favorable condition. And that's now risen to about 13%. And just a few other considerations. Northern Ireland has the lowest level of forest cover in Europe. In terms of biodiversity, 11% of the species on the island are at risk of extinction. Around 50% are in decline. We have no Climate Change Act, although we hope that will change soon. We have no independent environmental protection agency. Most countries in Europe will have an independent EPA. And the last point I'm making there is just about how society has changed. And this is not unique to Northern Ireland, but we know that children's connection with the environment is lessening every year. And that's an important point, because what does that mean for the future? Now, these slides that I've just presented look at Northern Ireland, not at the wider world, but there's no doubt that we together are facing two worldwide crises, and that's climate change and biodiversity. And those were the two things that were in the environment sectors thinking at the forefront of our mind whenever the pandemic struck. So I'm going to move on and speak about the Neil Green Recovery Group. The group is made up of about 20 members of the Neil Coalition. And the aim of the group was to set out what a green recovery would look like and to advocate for the green recovery. And the focus of the group was how we would work through these three crises: climate, biodiversity, and the pandemic. So a few general observations which sort of led our thinking, I suppose. We could see early on in the pandemic, whenever people were allowed to get outdoors again, that people really appreciated green spaces. We could also see that green spaces were really popular. Places like the Mourns, local urban parks were very, very popular and were being used by a lot of people. We could see as well that there seems to be, and other people in this call will know more than me on this, there seems to be mental health issues connected to the pandemic and lockdown. We know of these other crises that we have in the background. Governments were talking about build back better. So what did that mean? And I suppose our thinking that was that we have an opportunity, a once in a generation opportunity, to connect these things together and to improve things for everyone. We felt that actions that are good for nature will be good for people. And in other words, we're facing a whole range of issues, and the only long-term sustainable answer is to develop policies which target these three areas: economy, society, and environment. And it's incredible, really, at how poor we've been at this in the past, and very rarely have we actually been able to do that. So we undertook some research just at the end of the first lockdown. So I'll just give you a snapshot of this. RSPB found that 76% of people felt that nature had been an important source of comfort and relief. 81% felt that visiting nature made them happier. 77% felt that nature had been important to general health and happiness. Outdoor recreation, 84% felt the physical health benefits of being outdoors. 90% reported benefits related to mental health and well-being from being active. And this really, to us, reinforced the potential and the need for a wider recovery, which would include environmental objectives. So the 5-point plan. As I said, there's a group of about 20 NGOs came together. I have to single out one NGO in particular here, and that's RSPB. RSPB were the leading group on this, and they undertook a lot of this work. So if there's anyone from RSPB on the call, I'll take this opportunity to thank you for everything you did. So I'll go through the 5-point plan. The first thing that we were looking for was a commitment from the Northern Ireland government to green recovery. I felt it was important that the executive should show commitment to tackling the climate and biodiversity crises, and that green recovery should be a central theme in legislation. We developed some simple advocacy documents, which I'm not going to go through here, but simple advocacy documents. We had a lot of meetings. We had a number of presentations and so on. We developed an MLA pledge. And overall, I think we were very well received. The proof's in the pudding. We'll see what happens in the programme for government, but I think that we've certainly registered green recovery with the politicians. The second thing then is legislation. And there's two particular bits of legislation that we think we need. Firstly, climate change. Whenever this presentation was first written, there was no climate change bill. So that has changed. We now have 2 climate change bills, one of which is a private members bill, which was helped to develop by the Neil members actually. And that's gone through its second reading. The second bit of legislation is a framework of legally binding nature recovery targets. And this is the thing that has been, I'm sure that this has been missing in the past. And this is work is going on to develop this at the moment. The links across the UK are working together in this. And there's an environment bill going through the House of Commons. And I think there's a reasonable chance that we are going to get something in this. The third thing is a reform of strategic government policy to deliver on green recovery. And what we're saying here is that the broader government policies, programme for government, investment strategy, rebuilding the economy, they need to have some green credentials. As I noted earlier, it's back to that balance, environment, economy, and society. The fourth part then is the Green New Deal. This is the main economic element of the 5-point plan. Now, the Green New Deal could include all kinds of things. It could include, there's going to be lots of things happening around net zero. There's going to be things like retrofitting of houses, electrification of transport. So that's all, those things will have to happen. Our focus was more on nature and nature-related outputs. The main bit of work we did here was we developed a project compendium. And what we did was we basically went around to Neil members, asked people to come up with ideas for nature-based capital projects, and we put those into a compendium. And altogether, we came up with about 100 projects with a value of about £100 million. And these projects covered things like peatland restoration, walking trails, habitat restoration, climate change adaptation, all kinds of things. So 100 projects, about £100 million, 1,200 jobs, and we've been using that to advocate to government. And the fifth part of the 5-point plan is then investing in nature to support healthier communities. And this is going to be the last part of my talk. So the last few slides are going to be looking at some of the work that we're doing around health. So the premise here is that investing in our natural environment will improve the mental and physical health of the nation. And this is especially important in areas of deprivation and will help in the prevention of health issues. Neil has done quite a bit of work in this over the years. Back in 2015, we did a health and environment conference, the most successful one we've ever done. And I think that led on to a lot of interest in the sector. Since then, there have been a number of programs taking place, but they've been kind of unstructured. And in 2020, we got a chap called Nigel McKinney. Many of you will know Nigel. And Nigel's written a report for us, which reviews what's been happening in the environment and health sort of connection, what we need to do, what research there is out there, and he's made a series of recommendations which we are now working on. And I suppose the key point here is to say that there is actually a lot of activity going on between the environment and health sectors, but it's not really structured, and I think that should be an area that we focus on. We set up a health subgroup, and we've looked at 4 areas. So the first area is policy development. What are the policies that we need to drive the environment and health agenda? So we think implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. We know that they're going to register in the programme for government. We're interested in the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act that they have in Wales. I'd be interested to hear people's views on that today, actually. And we think we need a new outdoor recreation bill for Northern Ireland. This would cover core path networks, access to the countryside, public rights of way. Northern Ireland has very poor public access to the countryside compared to other countries. More shorter term actions that we think need to be taken. We feel that there needs to be more blue and green space and improved access. We think this should be standardized across councils because it varies a lot between the council areas of Northern Ireland. There should be community-wide, council-wide community trails, improved green infrastructure, much more focus on active travel, and in particular, a Northern Ireland-wide Walking for All initiative. Nature-based treatments and social prescribing, as previously noted, there has been a lot of activity. This is an area that we want to develop, and we're working in it at the moment. And again, what we want to develop here is more of a structured approach to what's going on. Sustainable food and diet. During COVID, we saw an awful lot of activity around food. It felt a bit uncoordinated. So we would like to see more coordination of this. We'd like to see more emphasis on community growing, more emphasis on provision of spaces for community growing, and more emphasis on transfer of government land to communities. So this is the last slide, you'll be pleased to hear. Next steps. I think that from the environment sector's point of view, we need to make more connections. We've always been very good at talking to one another and connecting with government. We need to be better at connecting to other sectors. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why I'm pleased to be here today. Secondly, we need to be advocating for health-related actions to be included in environmental strategies. There's a number of things coming up soon, like biodiversity and environment strategy. So the environment sector, we ourselves should be talking about health outcomes in those strategies. We want to develop an environment and health plan for Northern Ireland, not a government one by the NEIL members, which we will hopefully then deliver. Most basically, we obviously need some resourcing. We need an officer in place to help drive some of this. And very lastly, I suppose we just need to keep the discussion going. And as I said earlier, I'm very pleased to be here, and thanks for listening.
Thanks very much, Craig. Very, very informative. I almost felt as if during your presentation that Neil and the NI Environment Link has been the sort of coordinator of a lot of things people do want to see happening without us perhaps even realizing that you've been in that role. We've got a few minutes, Craig. Can I ask you, there is a Climate Change Act now going through the Assembly. There are two. One is at an advanced stage. You've been heavily involved in that work. Clearly, you're very aware of the need to engage with our politicians to advocate on behalf of the issues you've outlined. So does that mean that you are now being heard by our politicians and by the Assembly?
Yeah, it's interesting, Brendan. You know, all the links have been around for quite a while, and you know, it's not that Northern Ireland's particularly different to the other places. We've had it's been the same situation here, and it's probably the same situation in many countries. Over the years, I suppose we've slowly made headway, but what's happened in the past few years is it is a step change. Like, there's no doubt about it. It's a step change, I think, partially because of climate change, because I think people can see there's an immediacy there that we need to do something. I think also the nature crises, I think people can see that there's something there we really need to do something about. I think where my organization has been sort of successful is we're not a public-facing organization. Members of the public will not really know what we do. Our work has been to connect the environment sector up to politicians, but to connect to other sectors. And I actually think that's where we've had most successful. You know, we've been good. We've been successful at reaching out to, you know, the wider community sector, and we've got more and more people engaged. So that has all helped. I would also say a key element of this is young people. You know, in one of my slides, I said that we should be concerned about the disconnection that people have with the natural environment and children. That is definitely a serious issue. But at the same time, what we've seen in the past few years is young people have become really energized by this.
Yes. Yeah.
And in our discussions with civil servants and politicians, I would say that's been the biggest thing. that's the one thing that they have really picked up on. So I think we're going in the right direction.
Good. That's a positive thing, Craig. It's actually encouraging to hear you saying that, and particularly around engaging with young people. And there seems to be almost a global awakening of the younger generation, particularly around, really driven by that whole climate change agenda. And wouldn't it be wonderful to see a May 2022 Assembly election fought with issues like climate change right up there on top of the agenda? I'm sure that's to your forefront of your mind as well. You were giving us some statistics early on in your presentation, Craig, and we have made progress around recycling. We've made very significant progress around things like energy from renewable sources, but we seem stuck when it comes to use of public transport as our means of transport. I think you talked about walking and public transport was 25% at your baseline, and it remains 25%. I mean, I wonder, it's probably too early to look at, is there a COVID impact on all of that? Do you see that COVID might change the way people on the other side, when restrictions are lifted and people start to go back to their offices? I dread to think we simply see a return to the way things were in January, February 2020, and just everyone just goes back to the so-called normal. Might there be a bounce around use of public transport after this?
There might be. The difficult thing with this one, Brendan, is it's not an easy one to solve. The bottom line issue we have in Northern Ireland is it's still quite a rural population. And people are still working in towns and cities. So there's an understandable reason why it's not that easy to solve. My general sense is that things are improving. Now, part of the improvement is going to come from things like home working.
Yes.
That's inevitably going to mean you will get less of that really bad, traffic into cities.
Yeah.
The other thing that's happening, of course, is there are big improvements happening in public transport in terms of how climate friendly, how nature friendly it is. I also know that councils are being serious about it. Like councils, I do genuinely believe that councils are seriously trying to look at active travel, at greenways. Like if you look at something, I don't know if anybody from Connswater, for example, is on the call, but if you look at something like the Connswater Greenway, like that is fantastic. Absolutely. What an amazing project, and the impact of that. So it's a gradual process. There is a problem in government about it, I would have to say, and it's the age-old problem. It's not joined up enough. Too many times we see in government that one part of local council could be doing something on greenways or active travel, but another part of government is doing something. Our planners are doing something where they're insisting that there's car parking spaces. It's things like that we just haven't got right. So as I said, I'm an optimist. It's an area we haven't progressed and we need to.
Okay. Craig, one last question. You flagged up as a potential future legislation, and you used Wales as an example. You said a Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. I was just captured even by the very title of that. What would that look like? How can you... I need to go and study what they've done in Wales. How can we legislate now for future generations' well-being? What shape would that take?
So the well-being of future generations, they did it around 3 or 4 years ago. They have a commissioner, and it's pretty much aimed at government and the public sector, and it's about basically saying that all of your policies have got to have these 5 or 6 areas in mind, and it includes things like climate change, learning and education, natural environment, health and well-being. So it's basically, I suppose the idea is it's putting the person, it's putting the individual, society at the heart of policy making, and it says that all of the rest of government policy needs to, deliver on those. I've spoken with people in Wales, and I know some of them are dubious about it, some of them like it. So I just think it's something that it's definitely worth consideration. And I would love even after today, if any of the people here know anything about it, if they'd like to contact me, because I'd be interested to talk about it.
Well, even the very pursuit of such legislation would send out a very strong signal, around future sustainability. And in Belfast Healthy Cities, we often talk about health in all policies, and the fact that health as a political issue does not simply belong to the Department of Health. You know, every major piece of infrastructure development, every major planning application should be considering what is the impact of the health of the people who live in this area, physical health and mental health as well. Yeah, very, very interesting. Craig, listen, thanks very much. Very, very informative. Very good presentation. You set us thinking there, so thank you. That's always good.
Thanks, Brendan.
If you can mute yourself, you've done that already. Thank you, Craig. Gitty, I'm going to bring you in just a second. If you could tee yourself up to get ready to address the seminar, and I'm going to introduce Gitty, who is Gitty Korsuize, and she can put me right on the pronunciation. Apologies, Gitty, if that's not correct. Gitty is a friend to Belfast Healthy Cities and part of the European Healthy Cities Network, and is an urban ecologist at the City of Utrecht in the Netherlands. Gitty is an urban, green and nature advisor, and her role or mission in life is to connect people with nature, nature with people, and people who have an interest in nature with each other. So she seeks to seize opportunities to preserve and to strengthen nature. And I think we're going to see in Gitty's presentation some very visual and very physical examples of connecting cities with nature. So Gitty, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan, and thank you also for the invitation to show some nice pictures from Utrecht. So I'll start sharing my screen. Just 1 minute. Wait. Right, now you see full screen, I hope, right?
That's it, Gitty. We do indeed. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thanks again for the invitation. I would love to visit Belfast sometimes to see your lovely city. I read about it a bit in advance of this presentation. I'm very curious into your lovely city. So during this pandemic, I will probably be one of the first outdoor activities outside of your country that a lot of people have. But I'm very pleased to take you along to the City of Utrecht and to show you which things we do for nature in our city. And yeah, I named my presentation Rewilding because that's something we need to do not only with our cities and our nature, but also with our people. So it's not only a physical exercise, it's also a mental exercise. I'm Gitty Korsuize, if you pronounce it in the Dutch way, and I've been working for the City of Utrecht over 20 years. So it's a long commitment to renature your city. So I'm going to show you some projects, but first of all, I will take you along the City of Utrecht just to have a bit of an idea about which city we are and what we do here. Then I will show you some projects we did for nature, and I will tell you a little bit more about building an ecosystem, and also that I'm not doing this on my own, fortunately. So, welcome to the City of Utrecht, and we're at the middle of the Netherlands. We're the 4th largest city, and because we are on the middle of the Netherlands, then a lot of trains arrive in Utrecht and a lot of highways are encircling Utrecht. So a lot of people visit through our city, and that's also very tasking on our air quality and also on noise issues and stuff like that. So we're trying to be a healthy city for quite some time now, and we made some very strategic choices. Sorry, still practicing my English. I think the City of Utrecht is most famous for the Dome Tower. It's now being renovated, so it's this lovely picture was 2 years ago, and now it's all well, how do you say it, behind, oh, I don't know the word, but you cannot see it this lovely as on this picture, so enjoy this picture, and in 2 years it will hopefully be finished, and then it will be back again for everyone to see. Utrecht is also famous for the old city canals. We have a lot of wharves alongside our canals, and as of today, the terraces are opened again, so people can outside drink and have a meal up to 8 o'clock in the evening. And I'm sure tonight all the terraces will be filled again with people. This is a really nice place to sit. The streets where the cars and mostly bikes are traveling are above you, so you don't see them or you don't hear them. You just sit downside alongside the water and enjoy the peace and quiet there. And last year we also finished a big project in Utrecht, and that was the canals encircling the whole city again, because we closed some of the canals in the 70s, and there was a lot of protest then, and eventually 30-40 years later we reopened the canals again, and now you can take a boat and circle the whole inner city of Utrecht again. So this was a really big project, but it really also contributed to the livability of the inner city. People can enjoy the water again, and yeah, we are very proud that that it's finished now, and that we can enjoy a long stroll along the canals. We have a motto in Utrecht, and that's healthy urban living. That's what we're building for in our city. We are also doing a lot of research in this topic, and for instance, we calculated the life expectancy of different districts in our city, and we came to the conclusion that some districts really have a lower life expectancy than other districts, and the difference could be up to 11 years or 12 years even. So this is a big difference, and it's good that we calculated this, because it was really an eye-opener for our politicians and policymakers that what we're doing in our city, it should benefit all districts, also the districts where the life expectancy is low. And one of the items in which we try to improve our health in our city is the green area and the nature side of it. And that's the part I'm going to talk about. So you see the city of Utrecht with a lot of green on top of it and around it. This is what I'm working on. And the next slide is, yeah, what we're doing is adding green to our city, and not only green, but also enhancing the biodiversity of our city. So we're turning boring places like you see on the left into green spaces. Well, this is a visual of how it should be. It's not there yet, but this is what we are trying to do in our city, and what it should look like, just to make the people in the city see what we're aiming at. And in Utrecht, we have also the challenge that we're densifying our city. So we're building a lot of houses inside our city to prevent the city sprawl outside of the city. So we don't claim the nature outside of our city for new houses. No, we're trying to find places, old factories, industrial zones. We turn them around and make new housing areas there. But we're doing that in a green way. So this is a bit of a challenge when you're looking for more green space for your people, but also building houses at the same time. This looks for innovative solutions, and well, I will show you some of these innovative solutions in the next slides. As I said, we are building a lot of housing areas, and we're building those also for nature. And to show you a bit how we're doing that, 5 years ago, we talked to project developers and we tried to inspire them how they could build their housing area also to benefit nature. So it was completely voluntary, but we showed them that they could improve their projects by, for instance, adding indigenous green plants in the green areas in their project development, or by implementing nest boxes in their housing buildings. And some of them, those project developers, developments took over these suggestions. And well, as you see, after 2 years already, the house sparrow was using the nest boxes. So this was a huge success. And it even was such a huge success that we are doing it in our own municipal buildings ourselves now. But this is not voluntary anymore. We made this obligatory for our own buildings. And it's not only for new developments that we are doing this. So on the left and the right, you see 2 sporting facilities which we built, and we made sure there were nesting boxes for bats on them. But the picture in the middle, it shows our old city hall, and that has been renovated 3 years ago. And we looked to the plans and this monumental building for chances to enhance nature in this building. And for instance, in the roof gutter, we found that we could make holes, and those can be used by the common swift for building their nests. On the outside, you don't see anything of this, and this was very important to the people who protect the monumental status of the building. So this is a good example of how when 2 different disciplines work together, you can find solutions which are beneficial for both departments. So this is really nice, because the City Hall is, of course, one of our most important buildings. And by showing there that we can build for nature, it really sets an example for our other housing areas and renovation projects. And we even moved this further because we have a lot of project developmental areas now in which we are the tendering party. So we are requesting people to come up with a plan, and the one with the best plan wins and is allowed to build all those houses. And in these requests for housing development plans, we made building for nature obligatory. So if you don't succeed with putting in nature into your housing development, you're just out of the tender. You're just not a contester anymore, and yeah, you don't win. And we find that that raises a lot of awareness with project developers, and certainly the ones who are doing this for the first time are telling us that there are not that many costs with just doing these nest boxes in building or using other indigenous plants. So they're very happy to comply because it's not that high extra costs, and they see that it's a lot of goodwill with the people who are moving into these houses. So this is quite a success, and it's all due to a strong political commitment. So yeah, we're very proud of this as a good success. And I think the coming years, 3 years, a lot of housing developments are now realized, and we will have over 1,100 nesting boxes, for instance, in the city, added to what we already have. So that's a big number. Yes, some other projects. We have some walls, for instance, the Griftpark. Along our old city walls or our canal walls, we have a lot of protected wall vegetation. in the Gift Park, we're building a new wall, and citizens were afraid that it would be a really big graffiti wall. So we made a lot of holes inside the wall, and we put plants in it. We put a water system behind it, and well, now it's a really successful wall vegetation, not with ferns because it's a south-facing wall, so it's really sunny. But there are a lot of flowering plants, and a lot of wild bees also make their nesting boxes inside this, the holes in this wall. And of course, they find a lot of food on the wall. It has been maintained by 3 volunteers for over 15 years now, and it really looks lovely. So if you ever have the chance to visit Utrecht, do it during the summer and visit the Griff Park to see this lovely wall. We also have a park on a highway, and this we did for an economic reason and also for a health reason, because by making the highway into a tunnel, it was possible to build more houses in the housing district of Leidse Rijn closer to the highway. But it also would reduce the noise level in these houses, and also improve the air quality, because the air quality is sucked at the beginning and at the end of the tunnel. And it added, of course, a nice park on top of it. And a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, are enjoying these parks a lot. So the health benefits are very present. And right at this moment, the building of a new building is starting. Because we are a densifying city, there's little room on the floor level to make new green areas or new parks. But in this project, Wonderwoods, we are making a lot of green on top of the building. So a lot of these balconies have trees on them, the roof has trees, and there's on the 7th floor, there will be a park with a restaurant for people to enjoy and to walk during opening hours of the restaurant in a really green environment. Of course, it has also a lot of nesting boxes, and this is important because in the inner city of Utrecht, there's not a lot of room for greening our city. So by not doing this horizontal but vertically, this will really enhance the livability of our inner city. So hopefully in 3 years, we can see how it will turn out. Oh, that's the other way around, sorry. Utrecht is also famous for an innovative project on green roofs on bus stops. We had procurement on putting new bus stops in our city, and we invited contestants to make bus stops which would also be beneficial for biodiversity. And the contestants who won, they put on green roofs on the bus stops, and they made a lot of environmental friendly materials into these bus stops. And it's been really a success. A lot of people all over the world have asked us questions on how we did this and why we are doing this. And maybe the green roofs on the bus stops are not really a shocking biodiversity improvement, but it did something in the minds of people. We saw, for instance, in the funding applications for putting green roofs on your own house, that it increased in 2020 by 5-fold or 4-fold. So by setting a good example as a city, you also can make your own citizens enthusiastic about what you're doing, and asking them to join in what you're doing. So in that way, it really was a huge success. Sorry. And we built a lot of bee hotels in an advertising pillar alongside the highway. This is also by smart procurement and putting biodiversity also in the rules for joining the procurement. And we didn't ask for a bee hotel, we just let people see what they could do for biodiversity by this advertisement pillar, and this is what came out of it. So this is really just simple smart procurement, which can have a huge impact on your city and on your nature. I want to talk to you a little bit about connecting green areas. We're doing a lot about that in our city as well. We're connecting parks by putting in tunnels beneath roads. Not all of the tunnels are as huge as this one. This one was put underneath the road last year, and this is our biggest one. But we have a lot of smaller connecting tubes inside our city, which connect parks, and we try also with bridges to make them animal friendly, so that animals can pass through the bridge without having to cross the street. In my presentation, there's also a lot of links to websites. If you want to have more information, you can look it up over there. With Google Translate, everything is easily translated into English. So, okay, I will speed up, I think, Greg or Brendan, right? I will go a little bit faster. This is our project of this year, which really has gone viral. Is the fish doorbell. We even have an English page, so you can look at it to see what it's about. But it's really been a huge success, and it opened up the eyes for the people in Utrecht to see what is swimming through our canals. So in awareness, it's been a fantastic project. I do want to stress a little bit with all these lovely nature projects. It's nice that we have many good examples, but we're building an ecosystem here. So it's not about the wild bees and the birds of prey. You really need to look at all the different layers of the food pyramid to build a solid ecosystem. So you need a strong basis with flowering plants, trees, shrubs, and fungi for the insects to live on, and the birds who live on the insects again, and of course the predators who live on the smaller animals. So you need to look at the city in a wider perspective, not only the fun nature projects, but also stuff like indigenous plants. Plant as many indigenous plants as you can, because those are really beneficial for biodiversity. All the exotic plants are very nice, but they don't do a lot for your insects, and thereby not for your birds and all the other animals. That wood is also a thing which is very much forgotten, but it's an essential biotop in your city, so don't forget that one as well. And of course, you need to maintain your green areas on a nature-friendly way. So see if you can leave some flowering plants standing all winter long for insects to survive the winter. These are really important things, and it takes time for a municipality to do this correctly, but if you keep on trying, eventually it will work out just fine. And of course, we're not doing it alone. We have a lovely group of citizens who are putting a lot of time and energy in facade gardens or greening streets, and also advising other citizens how to green their streets or balconies. So do embrace them and give them as much rewards as you can to keep them inspired. And without political commitment, we would be nowhere. So this year we are the most bee-friendly city of the Netherlands. So we're very proud of this. And as is my politician, we're doing a lot for beds in the city as well, but we had also a strong politician for this topic. Without them, we would be nowhere. So it all starts with political commitment. So this is my last slide, Brendan. Thank you for your attention. I hope I brought some inspiration to you in Belfast, and if there's any questions, I look forward to answering them.
Gitty, thank you very much. And it's wonderful to see the physical manifestation of connecting the city with nature. We have a few minutes, Gitty, and we have a couple of questions that have come in, and one from me to start off. You mentioned, I think twice in your presentation, that there was political goodwill or political commitment to pursuing your aims, but I wonder by what political process like initiatives are undertaken or decisions get made. Is it a city council initiative? Is it very localized? Is it driven by NGOs? Like what is the decision-making authority when it comes to actually implementing some of these greener and sustainable initiatives?
Well, I think in Utrecht, it's a lot of initiatives or ideas come not only from the urban ecologists, but also from a political party. And if I translate it, it would be the party for animals. And they are really into protecting the cats and the dogs, but also the biodiversity of the city. So they ask a lot of questions, and they come up with a lot of suggestions. And when they find a majority in city council, as a city, we then have to comply and take this alongside. But of course, we also have aldermen who have own ideas on nature and who put this into projects. So, and a lot of NGOs as well with lovely ideas. So the Fish Doorbell was an NGO initiative, or a citizen who had a great idea. Well, we take it along and found the funding, and we realized it. So.
Okay, so it's a mixed approach. One question we have in, Gitty, from Roy White asks, in Utrecht, does the city plan, design housing and how it should look, and then put it out to tender for the private sector to implement, or does the private sector come forward with its own ideas which happen to meet the policies of the local authority?
No, we put in some rules from ourselves. So we have a certain amount of obligations, and then within these restrictions of the obligations, housing project developers are free to present their plan, and then the best plan we will pick as the winner.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gitty. Craig, could you unmute yourself just for a moment and rejoin us? And I'll say to Anne as well, Anne, we're going to call you in 1 minute. But Craig, I just wonder, as you sat through Gitty's presentation, was there anything that particularly stood out for you that we here in Northern Ireland could learn from?
Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, Gitty, thanks very much. I thought that was a really brilliant presentation. And I think really encouraging, actually. I think that what struck me most about it was the diversity of things that was happening. You know, there were so many projects, and I also thought it was really refreshing because it didn't look as if it was just engineering or large-scale projects. It looked as if there was a lot of small-scale community-type activity, which I think is actually crucial. So, you know, did you have any particular method, Gitty, for involving sort of local community, or do you have for involving local communities?
Well, I don't have a particular method, but I do have, I have the opinion, let me phrase it like that, that I try to do as much as possible with as many volunteers as I can find. So I try to find projects in which I can involve the community. So we have a volunteer group who are searching for common swift nesting places. We have a bed 030, so a bed volunteer group. We have a plant searching group, not only to show the people which nature we have and to also have more collective knowledge of the nature we have, but also because they are the ambassadors of our nature. So they will tell the story not only to their own families, but also to their friends and their families. So do invest in awareness, because if you don't have any awareness in the community, then you won't have any commitment for all the things you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig. And thanks especially to Gitty. And I must say that, Gitty, on the other side of the pandemic, when we're able to travel a bit more freely, we would absolutely love to have you in Belfast.
I really look forward to coming.
Very
so
good. That's good.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Gitty. So if you don't mind now, just turning your camera off and stop your screen sharing, I'm going to introduce our final speaker in today's seminar. Anne McCusker will be known to many of you. Anne is part of the team at Belfast Healthy Cities, and she's a program manager and a healthy city coordinator with Belfast Healthy Cities, and has recently been appointed as a member of the Phase 7 World Health Organization Advisory Committee of the Healthy Cities Network. And Anne is leading the development of the health literacy program and supports the work which is done around healthy aging and health inequalities, as well as other recent work on health literacy communication training and a pharmacy, a primary schools resource as well. So here to talk to us about creating space for healthy places. If you're ready, Anne, I'm going to hand over the floor to you and your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenton. I will share my screen if you can see it. Okay. Okay, so you should be able to see that.
That's it. Perfect, Anne. Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to go through a bit about the Healthy Cities Network, the goals and requirements for this phase 7, and then also some of the work that we have been doing through Healthy Cities and the evidence that would support it. So the Healthy Cities Network is a European network through WHO. It consists of 1,400 cities, which covers 165 million people. So it's a huge scale program right across Europe that looks at themes during each phase. We're currently in phase 7, and the themes are around the 6 Ps, which I'll go on to in a minute. You can be a member either through the national network or through a designated healthy city, which we are and have been for the last 30 years. So you can see the collective action that is happening right across Europe on the common themes, and you'll see the 6 Ps, which are our themes for this until 2025, which are overlapping but look at people, place, planet, peace, prosperity and participation, all with health and well-being of people at the core of the work being done. They were adapted from the Sustainable Development Goals by city mayors that identified the need to be working at a local level on the Sustainable Development Goals to deliver them for the benefit of people in cities, and the collective action that's taken place to deliver on those. And I suppose when we look at the SDGs, we can see that planning of our cities and our communities, it plays a crucial role in delivering the SDGs. I think there are 6 that directly relate to planning. So there are many opportunities when we look at healthy places to consider the delivery of the SDGs within that. Our work on healthy places or healthy urban environments has been happening for a number of years through the Healthy Cities Network. And I suppose this map developed by 2 urban planners that have worked very closely with Healthy Cities over the years, Hugh Barton and Marcus Grant, really highlights the impact of the wider determinants of health on people's health and well-being, but also the connection with place and how the built environment and the natural environment plays a huge impact on people's quality of life, their life expectancy, their healthy life expectancy. So it's a hugely important area to consider and the work being delivered. And I think this picture really encompasses the benefits of healthy places, and particularly an area of work that we have been focusing on, which is walking, both for the environment, and it is around child development, but I guess it's for the health and development of people of all ages. It has physical and mental health benefits. If your city or your community is a walkable area, it'll increase your physical activity levels and will have a positive effect on mental health. If more people are choosing walking as a mode of transport, we can see that then there'll be less congestion, less air pollution related to traffic. It also has a huge impact on women's health in terms of bone density and lowering levels of osteoporosis. And I think during the pandemic, walking and being in our local communities has been hugely beneficial for all of us. And it gives you that opportunity to increase your social capital, to meet people in your local area, to have those casual conversations, to feel connected to where you are, and adds to your quality of life. Children are impacted most by road traffic collisions, and where there are more people walking and streets are open to walking and active travel, there are lower levels of injuries for children through road traffic. And I suppose that's something that has been considered in the minister's work on 20-mile-per-hour zones around schools, and how that can impact both behaviour but also the safety of children and people on their journeys. And in terms of costs, infrastructure costs are significantly lower to maintain walking spaces than our roads. So the evidence is there in recent reports published through WHO and URBACT have highlighted the benefits in the previous slide, but also saying that 63% of global mortality, which is about 36 million deaths per year, is linked to chronic diseases. And if we were able to walk our everyday short journeys, that would contribute significantly to the expected levels of physical activity that we should be completing each day. And a physical inactivity that is likely to be more common among urban populations, which could be due to the nature of how our streets are designed to prioritise cars, which would lead to poor walkability conditions and a lack of access to recreational areas. This is responsible for 3.2 million deaths annually. And our colleague at Queen's University, Ruth Hunter, has been involved in this work. And the evidence, while it shows about the mental health and physical health, it also highlights issues for different population groups, and particularly women who feel safer in wider open spaces of green spaces. So something to consider when we're planning our areas, and also the impact of access to green space on quality of sleep as well. And I know within the documents there's evidence from neuroscience, but one of the leading neuroscientists that would promote walking is Professor Shane O'Mara, which really highlights, provides a very convincing argument around the benefits of walking every day for short journeys, even on cognitive function, and would suggest walking for meetings. And I think we can all see, while Zoom is fantastic and we're able to connect today through Zoom, having that time to walk to meetings or to have time for inspiration is really lacking at the minute. And I suppose walking for journeys creates that time to clear your head, to give you some creative thinking as well. When we talk about it in terms of monetary terms, which is always important to consider, studies done over the last number of years have reported estimations in terms of 900 million is the amount that could be saved in the UK annually if everyone exercised as much as they were suggested, such as walking 20 minutes per day, 5 days a week. And when we consider how under pressure our health system is, creating communities where walking is the easiest choice and the simplest choice for short journeys might support people to stay healthier longer rather than have to present with chronic conditions. 40% is the increase in trade that has been reported when places are made more attractive for walking. And this is certainly something that Professor Shane O'Mara would advocate for. You know, I suppose there is an argument, a concern from traders where there isn't access to parking spaces near to their business. It might affect trade. Where we see destinations that are popular, even across Belfast, where people can walk freely. It's a destination rather than a thoroughfare that you might drive through. It increases trade significantly. And Craig had mentioned earlier about social prescribing and the green recovery, and we see that 7,000 is the estimate per person that could be saved if ecotherapy was something that was available for people with mental health problems and are referring into, and a structured program would really highlight the benefits of this. And while we are speaking today about walking, there are significant benefits for having dedicated infrastructure for cycling as well. And I know the concern of our younger generation of young people coming along for the environment has been highlighted and has been raised in the media recently. I suppose our Healthy Places, Healthy Children is a really structured program that allows that conversation to take place. It's targeted at a key stage 2, 8 to 11-year-olds, and was developed over a number of years with schools and communities across Belfast and Northern Ireland. And it was really, I suppose, in response to a lack of child-friendly spaces in Belfast, and it was to consider then having that conversation, introducing the concept of place and the impact of the environment on children's health, and really encouraging them to think about the change, assess their area, think about the change that they wanted to see happen and how they could influence change with their local elected members. It was piloted with 31 primary schools across Belfast, and it is now available through the CCEA freely for all schools to use. But it was also used across the Healthy Cities network with a number of cities, and has been translated into 2 other languages. And we were delighted to welcome Athens to the City Hall in Belfast to present what they had done in their primary school. And they really use it as a teaching resource for English, while also highlighting the impact or the benefits of a healthy built environment. And when we look at what children had asked for, I think the slide in a minute really highlights it. It was the school had said, the children had said that it sounded like a very simple and basic idea that they came up with, but it would have such a difference on the mood of the pupils, the staff coming to school, and the appearance of the whole school. So that was really considering the fence that they had with the barbed wire around it, and creating then a very colourful, child-friendly fence in its place, something very simple, which was supported through their local elected member. And some of the proposals were what the children wanted, as basic as a new fence, but some of the schools have used the resource to attract significant funding and have huge improvements within their school grounds and within their local area. And it's really encouraging to see the voice of children making a difference in local planning in their local area. So the Community Active Travel project that we're involved in with PHA, our element looks at walking and walking in communities, whereas the Sustrans part of the work looks at cycling. So why walking? Well, I suppose walking is one of the ways that we can test if our city is a healthy city. If we consider the number of people walking, how far they are walking, and how they feel when they're walking. So if we look on our streets and we see older people, we see people pushing prams, we see people with mobility scooters and rollators visible on our streets, we know that this is an environment that supports all levels of mobility. And while our focus initially was on age-friendly through the Age-Friendly Belfast plan, the benefits were for everyone. we used the WHO checklist of essential features of age-friendly cities and tested it in Belfast to see if the views and opinions of older people were the same of those across Europe, and what changes that we needed to make it more walkable friendly for older people, but also what are the benefits that are visible on our local streets to encourage people to remain visible in their local area and be able to walk and be supported to make their journeys by walking. And when we compare it to work that has been done by Lucy Saunders around healthy streets, it's largely the same. And while this was around infrastructure, it has benefits for a livable community, a healthy local economy, and contributes to the environment as well. And it's things like seating and lighting, creating a place that's a destination rather than somewhere that you would pass through. So there are places to stop, and it caters for pedestrians from all walks of life. Now we know everyone is not able to walk, but walking is the most likely way to get most people active most often. So that's why we were considering it. Safety was a huge thing as well, and clean air, and contributing to a place where people felt relaxed and wanted to return. So the methodology was really using the questionnaire that was based on the age-friendly checklist, and engaged with local people to identify a route that they wanted to assess, and feedback both through a questionnaire and also a facilitated discussion to really find out the local knowledge, the things that people who use the routes know, and how then we can highlight what worked, and then think about things that needed to be changed for future going forward. It wasn't about retrofitting, it was considering the voice of people in planning going forward. So the areas that we assessed were 11 wards across Belfast, predominantly in areas of high deprivation where people may not have access to a private car, and relied upon the walking, the built environment, and walking as their perhaps first mode of transport. And how did the walking environment support you to take you to where you needed to go? So some really good examples of planning where there was safe spaces segregated just for walking, that people could feel safe making their journeys, and other areas that either had litter or dog filing or would need attention, or just didn't instinctively feel like a safe route to take. I suppose what we need to think about now is walking as a mode of transport, and what can I do? What can we all do? What is our role? So if we think about policymakers, it's about opening our streets to walking. Something to consider during COVID-19 and afterwards. How do we encourage walking or active transport as the first and easy choice? It's about creating a network of accessible routes, and it has to have key features to support women, to support children, to support older people. So that includes access to public toilets. How do you plan your route? Are you able to leave the house because the built environment supports you to do so? It's about clean pavements, safe spaces, and ensuring in all seasons that our pavements are free of clutter and well-designed clean spaces that will support walking. Other initiatives that have been taken forward in Scotland is to ban pavement parking, and that's something that MTAC are working with the Department of Infrastructure to take forward. And Living Streets, who we previously had at a seminar, are looking at the highway code and advocating that the pedestrian should be given priority in all instances. And that would really, I suppose, focus everyone's mind on pedestrians and the priority of walking as a mode of transport. And what can planners do? Well, it's certainly around designing places for people and asking the expert. And there are some really good strategies available across Belfast at the minute. The Boulder Vision is one that highlights the putting people at the centre of planning, and we need to see that vision realised on our streets for work going forward in public realm. And then it's considering the placement of pedestrian crossings, asking the expert, the person who uses the streets, a pedestrian, considering their views in street design through consultation responses, through active engagement, and creating a pleasant route, networks of streets for us. And then what can we all do? We can consider them walking anything under 1 mile for short journeys, whether we walk to school, and it's walk to school week at the minute, whether we walk to work if we can, or encourage others to walk with us. And if we're not able to walk, then we can consider those that do by parking your car on the road rather than the pavement. So that's my presentation for today. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and hope it was useful.
Thank you very much, and some very direct and specific recommendations or even challenges to us all to get that little bit more active, walk where we can. I just wonder, in your experience over this last number of years, have things improved? Taking Belfast as an example, have things improved for people who want to walk into the city centre? I know you've been involved in studies around what prohibits all of that, but just overall, are we going in the right direction when it comes to promoting active travel?
Yeah, I think so. It's certainly on the policy agenda, and it's on everyone's mind during COVID. Do we have the space on our streets to walk if you want to? I mean, the pavements in Belfast city centre are wide, and there's a lot of space for people to walk, but most of the community active travel work focused on local communities, and it considered then what are the local communities. I mean, 800 meters was an essential distance identified through research that Queen's University did, and in our local communities, that's where older people are most present, and recently where we are most present. And does that environment support you to go out and walk? So while city centres are good, and there's a way to go in Belfast, considering crossing times at pedestrian crossings to support all levels of mobility, and thinking about some of the examples from other cities, like the cities in Finland, where they have taken a 3-ringed approach, where pedestrians that are at the heart of the city, and then you have a public transport ring, and then there is room for your private cars. It's about having access for everyone. I think there is certainly a focus on it, but there's a way to go.
Okay, that's great. Just a question from your fellow panelist from Utrecht. Gitty is saying that, well, she's very much looking forward to walking through Belfast, but is it easily possible for citizens to suggest improvements to walking routes, or to suggest improvements for making walking routes more green or more sustainable, and how to make them more attractive? I suppose that goes on to the question of, like, who are the decision makers, and how do we influence those decision makers? So if a group of people, older people, younger people, have an idea, what's the best way they make their voice heard?
And I suppose it's through consultation responses where public realm works is happening, and also linking in with their local elected representatives. And I think we've seen a change in attitude of Belfast City Council through a change in makeup, where the Green Party have been more represented, and that has changed in the conversation with all parties. So I think it's by engaging, and if I suppose our schools resource is a really good way of children having a structured conversation and realizing the benefits of their built environment and how it impacts their health. So it's finding ways that you can get your voice heard as well and realize change. It is quite slow. I know in the number of years that we have been thinking about seeking and lighting. I suppose as has been mentioned earlier, there is in other cities, perhaps Utrecht, there is the mayor has a lot of authority and can make change, and we just don't have that in Belfast, but certainly there's an appetite for it.
Yeah, so I recall a couple of occasions at least where we had lots of primary school children in meeting with councillors and officials from the planning department within Belfast City Council, and it may have seemed odd to put such young people in direct face-to-face contact with decision makers, but those were great experiences. And I actually thought that the councillors, as well as the officials from the planning department, got a lot out of those sessions. So sometimes there's nothing to beat good old straightforward face-to-face conversations with people of all ages.
I think there's a lot of.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Anne.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's Walk to School week and it's
Oh, yes.
Biodiversity Day later this week. So there's opportunities for all of us to play our part.
Hit the pavements. Joan, I'm going to bring you in just 1 second, and just a reminder to everybody who's online, if you want to make any social media commentary, please use the hashtag Healthy Belfast and or support the conversation that is taking place online. We've heard from our three panelists, and really want to thank again Craig, Anne and Gitty, and I want to bring in now Joan Devlin from who's the Chief Executive of Belfast Healthy Cities, just to wrap up or comment on what we've heard today so far. So Joan, if you can unmute, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks very much, Brenton, and good afternoon, everyone. I thought we've had three excellent presentations actually, and quite different in their approaches. And we heard from Craig first on the wide range of environmental issues that Northern Ireland Environment link with. And some of the issues that I think I picked up in Craig's presentation were the level of recycling, the level of transport, the level of biodiversity, and where we are at with that. And really, in comparison to a number of other cities across Europe, we're a long way behind. We are beginning to see more proactiveness in this area, and I had conversations with Anne before this seminar. Even the term biodiversity is not used or not fully understood widely across Belfast or across Northern Ireland. And I suppose those of us working in that field have a job to do in terms of helping people to understand, and particularly working with people who experience inequalities or experience disadvantage. The two other points that I want to pick up from Craig was the Wellbeing Act in Wales, and my understanding of it, and we've had engagement with them through the community planning panel in the voluntary community sector panel in Belfast. And it's almost the success of that is very much depends on how proactive the commissioner is in terms of ensuring that the issues highlighted in the Act are addressed as part of basically all of the department's work. And the other point that he raised, and I think this came out in Gitty's presentation, is very much that around the joined up government. And I suppose for Gitty's point of view, we have the dilemma where our local municipalities have limited responsibility in terms of responsibilities in England, Scotland or Wales or in many of the European countries. But it's how we actually, the success very much depends on joined up government between departments here and councils. And we do see that increasing as well. And I think over the last couple of years, we have seen a significant increase in that through DFI's engagement, DFC's engagement on City Council. Gitty was the second presentation, and delighted, Gitty, that you could join us. I've been in your wonderful city a number of years ago when we had your Vice Mayor here as part of the Belfast conference and the International Conference of 2018. And again, that was about, defining the concept of healthy urban living. And those are concepts that we actually need to make visible for citizens and for other organizations and other partners that we work with. But really, some excellent examples of changing the space to green space, densifying the city by containing urban sprawl. I thought those were really good examples. Building houses for nature, using the indigenous green plants and the nest box, and the question from Roy around, some of these elements are part of their procurement now for building. And a really good example of that joined up working between the architectures and actually the people who work in biodiversity or the green area in terms of the municipal buildings. But the green roofs and the bus stops, interesting that, while it may not contribute significantly to the biodiversity agenda, it's important that people do see that, and it increases just people's understanding of what we actually mean. And my understanding is that TransLink have committed to that in the next set of metro bus stops. The connecting the parks, I thought, was a wonderful example, and I know Belfast City Council have talked about trying to connect the parks across Belfast. you know, what a wonderful idea to connect the parks underneath all of the motorways. And of course, then the emphasis, you know, on listening to citizens, and the fish bell being a very good example of listening to citizens. And I see your comment actually in the chat, is that you've district budgets where all citizens can apply to make small green improvements. That's actually a very good suggestion for here for the City Council, because there are small budgets for community groups here for other purposes. Finally, then we had Anne, and again, Anne's presentation was very much healthy cities. We were tasked with making the concept of healthy urban planning visible. And, you know, how do you make that real? And actually the walking assessments and the walking work that Anne has been involved in has actually made that very visible. The Healthy Places, Healthy Children resource has been a great success. And again, that's about engaging children and engaging younger people in this whole agenda. And Anne also did emphasize the voices of older people. And while I think Belfast and the public sector and the voluntary sector are super at engaging local people in comparison to many other cities across Europe, where the response is very often a slower response. Sometimes we have too many layers to go through to get to the key decision makers. But we have a very sophisticated community sector that we can build on, and that we actually can begin to do much more work. As Greg has said, there is maybe a number of years ago, we worked very closely with Neil, and perhaps out of this there are opportunities for much more joined up working between the environment sector and the health sector in bringing forward this agenda and the whole climate change agenda. But so one of the other good examples, I think, that was one of our awards in recent years was the flower alleys. And I think the first one was around Rugby Avenue. So a lot of alleys have now gone down that route in Belfast. And Gitty, for your information, the alleyways in Belfast are like the back doors and back entrances into terraced houses, and that has been a real success. And again, that was something that was initiated by local people in that area and has now spread across the city. But thanks very much for the speakers, and to Brendan for all of the really interesting, really valuable seminar.
Thank you indeed. Thank you, Joan. Well said. And we are just about squeezing in now. If we close, we're squeezing into the time frame. We started a couple of minutes late. We're finishing just a couple of minutes. We're finished just a couple of minutes late as well. So we're within that hour and a half time frame. I want to thank our three panelists, and I want to thank Joan as well. And I want to thank everyone for their attendance today. We hope you find it worthwhile, interesting, and in fact, we hope you find it challenging as well. And I would like to remind everybody that the recording of today's event will be shortly made available on the Belfast Healthy Cities website, as will all of the slides that were used in the presentations today. It helps us, folks, with our planning for future events if you can complete the evaluation, which will be emailed out to you this coming Friday. It will only take between 2 and 3 minutes to complete, and your feedback is very important to us and is very welcomed. Our next seminar, again online, will take place mid-June. It'll be around the pharmacy schools resource, and if you keep an eye on our social media, but we will be emailing to our wider mailing list as well to flag up that seminar as it approaches, and we hope you can join us then as well. So thank you to Craig, thank you to Gitty, thank you to Anne, and thank you as well additional thank you to Anne for your help with actually putting together, as usual, the technical side of this event. We hope to see you all in June. Thank you very much.